Welcome to day 240 of the 300 Movie Challenge. Today we watched the highest grossing film of May 2014, which was Maleficent. I have seen this before in theaters
Mm.
with my mom, actually.
hmm
Um, I have a very specific opinion on this.
Okay.
You want
So,
us to go first?
yes.
Okay. I remember I wanted to see this film, but I never got around to it for whatever reason. I guess it's like Valen with the Lego movie. Um, and now seeing it, I feel eh. I don't know. I'm like, hmm.
I feel like I need more time to kind of process how I feel about it, but I guess I'll try to express what I currently feel and then see what happens as we discuss it. And I don't really know. Maybe if by the end of the year it changes, then I'll bring it up then. But for now, I guess I'll do my best and some.
Well, okay.
Oh,
So the primary reason I want you guys to go first is because the main thing that I want to do is I want to bring up the common criticisms that I see of this movie.
okay.
So I want
Right.
you to go first to see if what you have to say before I prompt you with those things, right?
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
I guess I was like, well, when I was talking, I was trying to think of what my first point to bring up was, and I think I have 2 points.
Okay.
So in like the Hunger Games movies, we always reference the world building and stuff, right?
mhm.
This
Yeah.
world building is kind of interesting, but I don't think they do much with it. Like, for instance, in the beginning of the movie, you see all these like fantastical creatures and everything, and it makes it a point to mention the fact that there is no queen, but then Maleficent seems to act like a leader, so that kind of contradicts that thing. And then you don't really see much of them throughout the film, and they don't really affect the story or anything. You only really see them when like the wide scope of the fairy realm is like addressed and stuff. But otherwise they kind of fade to the background, and it's not really a criticism, it's just more of a I would have
An
liked to have,
observation.
yeah, it's like I would have liked to have seen more with like the world building and stuff, especially since
Mhm.
that element wasn't even originally there in the original film. So
Mhm.
it's an
Mhm.
add in here, but I feel like they didn't like flesh it out as much as it should have been
Yeah,
and
well,
stuff.
Mhm.
one of the things about this is that again, it is like, it has to be based off of the original story, right?
Mm,
So the plot elements, at least a lot of the basic ones, are kind of have to be there.
mm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, I agree with you in a sense where like it kind of feels like they're setting up like, oh, here's some interesting new things in terms of that, but then they kind of don't go as far with it as you wish they
Yeah,
did.
Mhm.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
Then I guess the other thing that I found a little bit confusing was the scene where he cut off her wings, which sounds like it shouldn't be confusing because the motivations are kind of spelt out for you and stuff, but I still find it a little bit confusing because, okay, so his intention going there was to kill her, obviously. But
Yeah.
then he doesn't because he still loves her and stuff, so he decides to just take her wings. Of which, I guess the confusing part for me is the fact of why Maleficent is so angry at him because it would have been worse if he killed her.
okay, two things about that. So one is I think a big part of it was supposed to be this like betrayal of trust because
Mm,
they kind of make it an
Right.
emphasis as like the humans and the fairies are like they don't work well with each other, and they kind of have an emphasis like, oh, Maleficent and Stefan were like new and special, right? So there's that.
Right.
And then the other thing is I've seen is that the whole cutting off of the wings is like a metaphor for rape.
Oh,
So now that said, if you think of it in that way, I don't really know if that's like a good way to think about it, because I would argue that like the message of, oh, this woman is raped, that means she wants to like, you know, therefore she's like justified in like terrible shit after that. And it's like, is that a good thing to say? Is that kind of how you're framing it? It's kind of weird. So like I can get it where the scene itself, like where she's like really upset about it, especially if you think of it in that context, that makes sense. But then the fallout after that, it's kind of like,
yeah, that's
know.
the part I was confused about, because I was like, okay, she's angry that he cut off her wings. Okay, I can understand that part. But then she's continues to be angry, and she kind of like turned the fairy realm into like a deep and dark place and everything, and then she goes to curse his baby and stuff. Like those parts I didn't really understand as much.
I guess, yeah. It's I'm still trying to figure out what I want to talk about, because I'm kind of I found the writing to be weird at points. Because of like, okay, so you mentioned how you read up after the fact, most likely, that was supposed to be a metaphor. I don't know if they got that across very well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can understand how it can be viewed in that way, and if you look at it in a certain lens, maybe you can see it that way, but maybe I feel like there's a lot of telling, and maybe it's because it's only like 97 minutes, so they can't show that much. But I think I wasn't totally sold on the whole relationship between young Maleficent and young Stefan. I was like, okay, whatever, they're friends, that's nice. And the thing with them like being like all special and stuff, being the only two to like a fairy and a human to kind of get along, it reminds me of like the stupid scene in Sword Art Online where Kirito and Asuna are the only people to ever experience joy in the video game for 2 years. The 2 years that like 10,000 people are stuck in that realm, and it felt like, I get that this is like, you know, a Disney movie, but we have seen that they can put out a lot of quality work that isn't so elementary. I guess maybe that's just like me being like kind of, I don't know, just wanting a little bit more out of this, because like, okay, I really liked Maleficent as a villain. She was one of my favorite villains of like all the Disney villains, because she was foreboding, she was intimidating, she was competent, and she got shit done. And I mean, she turns to a dragon, which is pretty cool.
Not only that, but the thing is that also tying in with my other point, in the original movie and stuff, you can, even though her motivation to cursing the baby is just because she wasn't given an invitation to like come and everything, somehow I feel like that's a much better motivation in the long run. Like, it just shows that she can be just petty.
Right, I think in the original it sets up as like, yeah, she's just like fucking nuts. Like, just so it's like, okay, fine. So she would be miffed at something stupid because she's just insane already.
Well, I like that about her character. And so I came into this movie knowing that they would flesh her out a little bit, and I came into it with an open mind. And okay, there were some parts where I thought they were doing something pretty interesting with her character, like her kind of, you know, being a little bit, I guess, vulnerable in some regard, where she's not super like I don't know what the word is. She's not super guarded with her emotions. She's like trying to open up to this child and then she like expresses regret. I guess the thing, like, okay, I'm not saying that this interpretation of Maleficent is wrong. I'm kind of saying that the way that they tried to fit this version of Maleficent into this version of Sleeping Beauty was a little bit clunky. Because I feel like I could like both versions of her separately. I like the crazy Maleficent, but I also kind of like this complicated, motherly, but kind of reserved Maleficent too.
I think the impression that I kind of get is that I didn't see this, so I'm just going off of what I know about this, but it kind of goes off of Wicked, which is like how they fleshed out the Wicked Witch of the West and stuff.
Okay.
I believe that, that was kind of the main inspiration.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And everything, of which I feel like there they explained it a bit better, where it was like, it doesn't change like a lot of the things that happen in Wizard of Oz and stuff. Like all of the things either happen in the past or it's happening concurrently.
Right.
And
Like
stuff.
off scene to what Dorothy is doing.
Yeah, I may be wrong with this. I haven't seen it. So I'm just going off of the very little knowledge that I know of. But I feel like here they were also trying to do something like that, but then instead of it still ending kind of the same, they kind of diverged from that point and added a lot more scenes and stuff, which is good for developing her character. I think I lost... Where was I going with this point? Okay, if you can look up Wicked, that would be great.
Well, no, I'm checking something because there's something that curious about. Because I think that this movie is actually a movie, one of the few movies that is too short.
Right.
And yeah, so I checked a couple other live-action Disney movies, and so, like, the Beauty and the Beast movie, for example, is over 2 hours. And I'm pretty sure the original is, like, 90 minutes as well. So
Yeah.
I feel like they actually hurt themselves by making this be 90 minutes. Because, again,
Yeah.
they don't quite get the relationship between Maleficent and Stefan. They don't quite get Maleficent Aurora. They don't, they just don't quite get, you don't quite buy exactly what they're trying to go for, because I think they just try to rush things too quickly. Now,
Yeah.
I think that was the point that I was trying to get to, so thank you.
here are some main things that I hear about this movie. One is the fairies are super annoying.
They are.
And here's the thing, I agree, but honestly, they're not in the movie that much.
That is true.
So, because I've seen like reviews and just people talking about this, and they're like, "Oh my god, the fairies are so annoying! They ruin everything." And I'm like, they're not on screen for very long, really. So
I do just wonder why they chose to kind of not vilify them, but they chose to kind of like
turn them into idiots.
Yeah,
no,
because
I
in the original
agree that they're
film-
annoying and they're not great characters. I've seen people basically like talk about how they're so terrible
Yeah.
and they're, take up so much space, and it's like, I guess, but yeah, they're bad, but again, they're not in the movie for a huge amount of time, so
yeah.
they
I
don't
guess
bother me
the
that much.
thing is that it's already a short movie, so whatever time that they do take up is a bit of time.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
again, so that's one thing.
Argument?
Another that I've heard is that Stefan, like, his whole character is that he's quote suddenly an asshole, and
Yeah.
I disagree with that, because again, I don't think the movie explained this super well, but I think they do show that like he basically loses his mind of being paranoid about what's going on. So
I only got that impression because the narrator tells you that.
right. So
yeah, I also
tells
got that.
yes, okay, so that's fair. I'm just saying that people have kind of said it where like there was no explanation, and I'm like, well, no, there was an
There is
explanation.
an explanation.
Yeah, there
It could
is
have
an
been
ex-
better.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it just punches you in the face. That's
Yeah.
all.
So okay, there's that. And then the whole thing about the
Is it the kiss?
yeah, so like the whole like, oh, it was like, parental love instead of like romantic love or whatever. Again, I don't mind that, because like that was the point of the movie in a sense, right?
Yeah.
So again, I just wish they just did it a little bit better. I don't mind the
If
concept.
if
I
they
think
did
if
it
they
better.
showed more moments and everything, and just, as you said, just expanded the film a little bit more to, like, basically expand on a lot of things, then it would have helped it a lot more. I think, yeah, they were leading up to that because, I mean, you see, the film is called Maleficent. So,
Yeah. So she's gonna be the heroic villain, or whatever you want to call her in this movie.
Okay, now those are all peripheral. The
Yeah.
big thing that everyone says is, quote, "This movie ruins Maleficent's character." Now,
I already touched upon this.
okay, so here's the thing. Is this Maleficent a different character than the previous Maleficent? Obviously, yes.
Yeah.
Do I think this Maleficent is better than the original Maleficent? No. Do I think she's worse? Again, I think she's maybe handled a bit worse, but concept-wise, I think is like fine.
She's too different. She's too different to compare the two.
Well, okay, exactly. So that's my point.
Yeah.
So when I see people saying that, and I know I mentioned this like really early on when we were watching movies, because I specifically said it was about like interpretations of characters. It might have been about, actually, it might have been
Charlie and.
I think that was when it was actually.
Yeah.
And I said there was a movie later on where I would come back to this, and it was this movie. So, because I remember I was saying that I was bothered with Willy Wonka and how he's portrayed in that movie. And
Yeah.
the reason here that I don't mind it that much is because I see this as just a completely different person.
Yeah.
I don't see this as Disney going, "Oh, this is the same Maleficent."
Well, obviously not.
No, exactly. But like, so I don't understand. I mean, I guess I can get it if you do not really like this Maleficent's character. Fine, but I don't get the whole idea of you're ruining Maleficent as a character, and it's like, but they're not doing the same thing. So like, I guess because okay, here's the thing. I think part of it is also that the story in this is kind of strange because it has to have a lot of the same elements as the original, but at the same time, it can't be the same as the original because of the whole point of the movie. So
Yeah.
they walk this kind of weird fine line where it's a remake, big quotes, on top of a reimagining, in big quotes, right? It's like it's both of them at the same time. So
I'm kind of thinking of this as like an alternate timeline or
yeah,
an alternate universe
yeah,
or
exactly.
something.
So
Like
I see it like that. And
it's like what they do in comics, like all the time. They have all these different interpretations of one superhero's story. So why does it bother people that Maleficent in this version is different from the original Maleficent?
yeah, it's like, I mean, I get, maybe it's just people who like they just use it because it's an easy phrase to say instead of like, going into the complexities of the character and why they don't like this version of it. Because like another example that I see is that how like Man of Steel ruined Superman, and I'm not going to get into this argument really because there's different arguments about it. But is Superman and Man of Steel different than most other Supermans? Yes, he is. Okay, but again, like you're saying, it's kind of its own canon, right? And
Yeah.
so for me, I feel like it'd be more of an issue if they literally just tried to like do a live action remake of Sleeping Beauty, but this was the Maleficent. Right? Then that would be
you
more of a
mean,
problem.
Like note for note,
Yeah.
old Sleeping Beauty, they insert this version of Maleficent.
Right, like again, think like the live action like Beauty and the Beast or live action like, something like that, but it is this Maleficent instead, then like that I feel would be more of a problem. Whereas here,
Yeah.
again, I don't mind it in concept, and I just think it's not executed super. I don't even think it's executed that bad. I just think it's kind of eh. So, yeah, and then I don't know, like I see people just get so mad about this for that, and I just like, I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much, and I don't really. It's just kind of strange because, there's since there's so many Disney live action remakes, and there will be more. Like people are all there's kind of the butt of the joke now is like Disney's unoriginal. Why don't we have any original things anymore? And it's like, but then you have this that's not really a live action remake. It is kind of its own thing, but it's kind of not. And people like still hate it. And like I get, of course, like it's like, whoa, what? You didn't want an exact remake. Here is not an exact remake, and you don't like it. Well, it's like, well, no, they wanted a good one, right? Duh. But like, so I get that. It's kind of not a great argument. But I still feel like people are trying to say that these two things are like the same thing, and it's like I don't think that's quite fair enough. Again, like, I have problems with this movie too, but I feel like people are comparing it with the original in a way that you shouldn't. So, because it is not the same movie. So, I don't know. I'm mixed-ish, but I'm not exactly sure where I fall in terms of, like, if it's in mixed, if it's in, like, enjoy despite faults. It might even be at, like, the bottom of the enjoy category. I'm not totally sure. And because the main reason, actually, probably, is that I like the visual style of this movie a lot. Like, this is basically how I feel Alice in Wonderland should have looked like. Right? Because does the CGI look realistic? No. But it's fucking Sleeping Beauty. It's not going to look realistic. It shouldn't look realistic, right? In terms of, like, visual style and, like, the colors and, like, how that works, I think it works quite well in terms of, you know, having a quote-unquote realistic, you know, view of how this looks like. And I think that works really well. Again, I wish there was more of it, like you're saying, in terms of like the world building of like the Moors and stuff. But I do like the visual style that's there. Although the fairies are kind of creepy, but whatever. So, yeah, I'm still kind of unsure. I remember when I first watched it, I thought it was like decent, and I think I do think of it like a bit worse now. But I don't think I can't say I don't like this movie, but I'm not sure if it's just like completely mixed neutral or if it's like slightly positive just because like visually it's well and some of the ideas of the characters are done well. So I'm not sure, but I think people give this movie too much crap, even though I'm still kind of split on it myself. So shrug.
My reasoning for maybe, I agree that with your points and everything, but I guess the one thing that I can maybe think of that's the issue that people find fault in is the fact that Disney was the one that did it. So it's kind of like if it was a different studio that was telling if a different studio gave out like this movie, I don't think people would have like jumped on it as badly as they did.
I guess.
But since it was Disney, then it's kind of like, well, this is like something that you've already done before and everything.
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm
not saying that like completely that means that everyone's like arguments and ills with this film are completely justified.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I guess like also
it's probably part of the reason because I know when you go to see Maleficent, you're kind of imagining the villain that you saw like in the animated and stuff. So people probably went in there with those expectations. And
I guess.
So.
The thing is, like, one of you said it before, but it's like, the movie's called Maleficent. She's gonna kind of be the hero, right?
Yeah.
So,
you know. I mean, I'm not saying that I dislike this version of Maleficent. I did like some of the qualities of her and stuff, but I think people probably still expected, like, to see certain
understand.
elements and stuff. Yeah.
I understand.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and shoot, I feel like I had something else and I forgot what it was. Oh well.
I'm not really sure what my overall opinion is because like Maleficent herself, I'm fine with her. I guess everything else in comparison just kind of paled though. Like I was never super attached to Aurora because I mean in even her own movie, the original one, she's not technically even the main character. It's more Prince Philip's movie.
Who's barely in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually was kind of sad about that because Prince Philip was my favorite character.
Yeah, like honestly, I was kind of
Like,
disappointed.
other than Maleficent.
He wasn't like he wasn't given as bad of treatment as like the fairies were, but I
Mhm.
thought that he was kind of like he was kind of made the lapdog of the movie. It's kind of
Yeah.
sad. But I think overall my main like of it is through Maleficent herself just being a more complicated character and like a different interpretation, but I think the thing that hampers me the most is just the writing
Yeah.
and the length
Yeah.
because the writing suffered because it was so short, and I think if they added maybe like 30, even just like 30 minutes, they could have maybe sold Maleficent and Stefan a little bit better, and they could have sold Maleficent with Aurora a little bit better. If
Add.
they had to pick
Yeah.
between the two, Aurora and Maleficent is of course more important, but
Mhm.
I always find like, okay, I have this weird thing where I find it super strange when like when you retcon something and you make one of the villains like the former love interest of one of the parent characters. It's super specific, but I always get really weirded out by that because because like Stefan is Aurora's father,
Mhm.
Right.
but then he and Maleficent had a thing going on and that felt really weird. Maybe it's just a personal thing for me, but yeah,
Oh, one thing too, which is very minor, is that you don't see them at all and they're only referenced, but I actually really enjoyed in the original film like the bantering between King Stefan and Philip's dad. But Philip's dad is actually never seen.
Mhm.
So I found that kind of
yeah.
He's only referenced, but that's like a really minor thing and it's not really anything to get mad over, but
Yeah.
that was just something.
Yeah. I agree with I think adding about 30 minutes and removing the narrator
Yeah.
would help the most of anything.
I hate narrators in movies.
Yeah, usually
Ugh.
most like vast majority of the time they're just there to squeeze out info and make things quicker. But
I think the movie that did it the best was Benjamin Button. Because
Oh,
the
my
reason
heart.
being is that, because, oh, I forgot what her name is, but the woman,
mhm.
she's the narrator, right? In
Yeah.
terms of she's the one, like, you start the movie with her telling the story to, like, her daughter and stuff. And in that way, you understand the fact that what you're seeing on screen is what she's telling her
Mhm.
and like what she's reading from the pages and stuff, but you don't actually hear her voice,
Mhm.
kind of.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like you understand that there is a narrator, but you don't have to hear their voice.
Yeah, I
Kind
think the
Right.
movie that like did have like a voice narrator that still worked was Ratatouille.
of.
Oh yeah,
But
that the other thing that made me
but
cry.
they didn't really the narrator was very brief. And I
Yeah.
think actually I mentioned in the discussion because it went up a few days ago as of recording this that that was one of like that was probably my biggest issue was the narrator. So again, is it a big issue? No, but like because it's not used very much. But it is one of those things where it's like, hey, you didn't even really need this. So yeah,
Right.
I don't know, but yeah, I just have to like stare at my list and be like, okay, do I like it more than this or less than this? And then move on. Do I like it more than this or less than this? And just try to keep going through there and just really think about it.
Yeah, I
'Cause-
think I just have to sit on it because I think the writing I need to still process like what
Mhm.
in particular like I didn't like about it, and I guess how much that hampers the fact that I liked what they did with the main character. So I
Yeah.
have to
I
kind of weigh
guess
that.
we're all in agreement with what Maya explained
Mhm.
needed to be like corrected.
Mhm. I'm just like, do I like this more or less than Iron Man 2?
Oh my god.
Very
Uh,
different movie.
Uh, deliberate
I'm
later.
not sure. Oh, this is hard. Um, yeah. I guess have we gone through enough of this?
I think so.
What's
Yeah.
next? Oh fuck! I know what's
I-
next.
Oh, what is next? Wait, let me go down.
Robots.
Oh.
Oh no!
Oh,
It's
man.
it's the last one.
Well, I don't think there's
Last
going to
one.
be much of a discussion about that one.
You know how I said that that Maleficent is one of the few movies that should be longer.
Yeah.
It should have stolen the time from the next
Yeah.
movie.
This next movie is so fucking long and has absolutely no reason for being as long as it is. Oh god damn it!
Well,
God damn it!
goodbye.
Bye.